Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange days indeed. Strange days indeed.
9 billion names of pod.
From Atlanta,
where we keep all our curiosity doors unlocked.
it's the 9 Billion Names of Pod with Dan Bauman and Michael Reed. I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm wondering what the hell is going on with Steve's hair.
So let's talk about some stuff.
Sure, as long as that stuff includes Steve's fucking hair. I mean, everyone looks like the 80s as I recall it, and then there's like one guy that looks like he stepped out of some horrible pre-Backstreet Boys band that I don't know what that's about.
Well, we'll get to that. There's we are going to talk about the surprise hit of the summer, Stranger Things, the Netflix.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. Yeah,
but of course, at this point,
most everybody's seen it.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
but you know what?
Pause, go watch it.
Right, but in fairness to everybody, not everyone has Netflix.
True.
And maybe they're waiting for the DVDs.
There's a lot of stuff I haven't seen.
Right.
And
So we're if it's been out in the last 2 years, we'll just mention spoiler in case there's one or two people in a cave in Afghanistan waiting for the physical discs to come out.
Right, and they are,
Akbar.
I think, yeah. But put a pin in the Steve thing because there's a whole funny subculture that goes along with that. But
is there?
there is, yes.
Oh, so
yes.
I'm not the only person that has noticed this.
Okay, all right. Let's
just do it.
go
Let's
there.
knock it out.
There is a whole online fan theory. Okay, you've watched Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah. Oh, John Ralphio.
Is John Ralphio, that Steve is actually John Ralphio's father. And they did a bit on, I want to say Fallon or Kimmel, where they did an interview with Ben Schwartz, John Ralphio,
right,
and the guy who plays Steve and they were wearing the same clothes and we don't understand it, and they were doing like the same gestures at the same time.
How did I not hear about this?
I don't know. Well, you hadn't watched Stranger Things, so you.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, but usually if I see stuff like that, I'll bookmark it and come back to it later.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we'll put it up on the page. It's very funny that they rolled along with it.
Well, I thought I was a unique, precious flower, that I was the only one who noticed things about Steve's hair.
No.
But apparently I'm like all the rest of you guys. Meh.
Yeah.
All right, I'll survive. I basically started Stranger Things like less than 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I'd had it for a while. I've been kind of biding my time on it, and I decided to start it along with Black Mirror, which we will talk about. And because there's far fewer, well, really, actually, this time around, there's only 2 more Stranger Things than there are Black Mirrors, because there's 8 Stranger Things and 6 episodes of Black Mirror.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 10 for the season 3. No, is it 6?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it is 6.
Okay.
I believe it is 6. Well, it's double what it was the last 2
Right,
times.
right,
Season 1 and 2 are 3 episodes apiece. And believe me, that's about all you could take.
Yeah, I've only watched. I'm trying to catch up. I only watched the very first one, and that was. That was kind of rough. So
we'll chat about Black Mirror.
We're gonna do one of that. I'll get that
once Dan's caught up and has processed it all, and it's just went. Thank God I'll be dead probably before most of these things happen in reality.
Right,
but probably not. I mean, we're getting there.
Well, we'll save that for
anyway. Back to Stranger Things. So. I alternated, for 2 viewing sessions between a Black Mirror and a Stranger Things, and then it was like 1 Black Mirror to 2 Stranger Things, and then it was like, you know what, I could save Black Mirror. It's an anthology. It's every episode stands alone. Yeah, and I basically powered through 4 episodes of Stranger Things in one sitting. Yeah. And I like it. It's not, in my opinion, it is not groundbreaking. It's okay. It's not going anywhere like, oh, that's, I've seen parts of Stranger Things in the original Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah,
I've seen, but that's not to say,
I think
everything that's good has to be a completely fresh, brand new, innovative idea that no one, takes something and then tweak on it, which they did.
Right. I don't. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it's a groundbreaking story or groundbreaking. But the execution of everything they did was flawless. And what holds everything together?
Say it with me now, kids. The writing.
Yes, the writing, but the
those duffers.
But like I said, the execution because how many things have been done where it's set in the 80s and everything is like overly hyper realized,
right,
and it looks cheesy, whereas this just looks like it was shot in the 80s.
Right. You see a guy's suit and you go, wow, this is the 80s. Like you had forgotten it was the 80s for a moment.
Right. They don't, and in this, I mean, yes, they have period, so to speak, clothing, but it's not, they're not shoving it down your throat.
Right.
Like, this is the 80s, this is the 80s,
Did you forget it's the 80s? Well, here's a hit from Duran Duran.
Exactly. It's just kids.
Right. Yeah, that's one of my complaints. Well, not necessarily a complaint, but it was one thing that wore on me a bit on one of the Black Mirror episodes that did some time stuff, shall we say.
All right.
And it's like, yes, the soundtrack, I get it. I get every song. You've packed 17 different songs in a club in a 3-minute scene. Songs last longer than 3 minutes, so you're obviously trying to pack so much 80s into here that we can't help but understand, yes, it's the 80s, as if that fucking hairstyle she's wearing and those god-awful clothes he's got on doesn't tell us every second of screen time you're in the 80s.
Right, and Stranger Things did not fall into that trap at all.
No. Every once in a while there's a little thing like, oh, why don't they oh, that's right, it's the 80s. Oh shit, yeah. You know, those walkie-talkies, those
big old
realistic
walkie-talkies.
Those big monster, there's more power in an Apple Watch now than there is in those big bread box size walkie-talkies the kids had.
Oh yeah.
So, well, let's get started on it.
Let me preface.
Yes.
For me, it was a glorious confluence of events, because it was one of those things where, for at the weekend it dropped, I just kept hearing, "Ooh, Stranger Things! Oh, Stranger Things! Oh, Stranger Things!" And was able to actually manipulate, actually find a window, and was like, "Hey, I keep hearing about this. I literally know absolutely nothing about it, because in this culture and the way we are, we find out, we get spoiled left and right by stuff."
I'm already threatening death upon people who spoil Gilmore Girls.
Oh yeah, me too. I but I literally knew absolutely nothing about what this was, and we just sat in. We turned on the first episode and was like, okay, let's go, and just let it wash over us, and just fell it down the well of what it is.
Now, I don't know if you've heard this, because after Steve's hair incident, I'm guessing I'm not a special flower like I thought. So my tagline for Stranger Things, or perhaps someone else has pointed this out, Stranger Things, it's like Stand By Me gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, my description was, it was the Goonies directed by John Carpenter. That's the way.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
And
except in Stand By Me, the body was the person in peril or who was dead was not one of their friends, and this time it totally was. Yeah.
And going back to the whole 80s thing, when they. That first one of those first few scenes where they're in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons,
right?
And behind them on the wall was the John Carpenter The Thing poster in the basement. I went, okay, now I know what this is. We're in the 80s. This is what this is going to be. And I was right. And I was like, beautiful, beautiful execution.
So if a film took place in my house, you'd look at the wall and go, oh, look, it's a poster of Santa Almost Fire, Ferris Bueller and Monty Python and Harold and Maude. So this must be, what?
What?
Oh, it's 2016? what the hell, dude?
That's a
Damn.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Yes, it's 1970, 60, 80,
84.
84. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah. You can't see what his house looks like, but that's just funny to us. So
It's a repository for pop culture detritus. that is
Yes.
yeah.
well, it was funny. We turn on the first episode. First scene is the shit going wrong, and the scientist running down the hallway away from shit. And Courtney looks at me and goes, "Oh, that's so and so, someone from the Atlanta theater community or
Right.
Atlanta theater and film
They
community."
cast locally. Saves them money.
Saves them money.
If you're going to hire a no-name, no-face person, might as well get it from where you're shooting.
Right. And then we get into the very first episode, and Mr. Clark, the AV teacher, shows up. And I was like, hey, that's Randy Havens. I know him. I was trying to get him to come by and talk about it on this episode, but he was unavailable. But we're going to try to get him.
We'll get him
on another episode because he's been doing a lot of work lately.
Because there's going to be a Stranger Things season 2.
Oh, there is.
They've already started announcing cast additions for season 2.
Yep.
So we'll it's like, where could it possibly go from there? Well, I think the last 30 seconds of the episode tells you exactly where it could possibly go.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. The first episode, it laid the table nicely, but it didn't hook me.
Okay.
It didn't okay, I'm on board. But by episode, I think 3, I was like, hell to the yes.
Yeah.
And I got to give it up to Winona Ryder. I've never been a huge fan of her acting or anything she's ever done ever outside of Heathers.
Or Beetlejuice.
Oh, Beetlejuice. Yeah. But
And that is not so much her, even.
yeah, that film,
in that.
really, they could have plugged anyone else in there and it would have been probably just about as good.
Yeah.
Put Helena Bonham Carter in there.
Yeah, well.
A little bit before her time.
Little
little
bit.
bit. Anyway, let's get an attractive dark-haired woman in there,
Right.
Or girl in this case.
Yeah.
But she nailed this role.
She was insane. That's exactly how a mother whose child is missing should act.
Yeah.
They should lose their fucking minds. And
Absolutely.
Not be melodramatic and depressed.
Where's my fainting couch? My child is missing.
Right.
Oh.
No, they should be manic and out of their goddamn minds, and
Right.
Buying phones and
lights
and lights
and a whole bunch, and believing really, okay, sure, that
believing any straw that comes to them.
What surprised me is that the sheriff came on board so quickly following this path about the disappearance. What was his name? Will
Byers.
Will
Yeah.
Byers, yeah. You'll find out quickly I'm horrible with names. So the mother character, one of the kid characters, and the fact that he broke into the morgue to check the body says a lot. But the fact that he noticed that there was no rain on the security camera at Hawkins Laboratory or whatever the hell it was, shows he's got he may be a little bit on the alcoholic side, but he whipped into shape. I'd like to see him and Winona's character get snuggly in season 2.
Yeah.
They've been through something together. That's not nothing.
Well, and they've been through stuff separate too.
Right. Well, yeah.
They're definitely kindred spirits because he's had some shit happen and she's had some shit happen.
Now, we're going to be zigzagging all over the place.
Yeah.
Last episode, and we're assuming everyone has seen the whole thing, so we can do this.
Right.
He's on the underside of the tightrope, on the other side.
Yeah, he's on the upside
And
down.
while she's doing her thing, he runs across the tiger or lion, I guess, that was in his daughter's. Because we still don't know exactly what the nature of the underside is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there, and someone has pointed this out to me, or made me point it out to them because they were confused. The completely black with the water, that's her projecting into areas that's not the underside.
Yeah.
She's not in the underside.
Yeah.
She's, we're going to say, astral projecting, putting herself in
something. She's crossing the dimension.
Right. She's focusing in on the Russian guy
Yeah.
or the monster, which is not the Demogorgon, but they call it the Demogorgon because whatever. But in the credits, it's never listed as Demogorgon. It's the monster.
Right.
The kind of badly rendered, could have spent another $100,000 on CGI.
They probably didn't have it.
They probably, they're going to get it next.
They're going to get it, yeah.
I mean, I'd be really bummed if, like, hey, you thought I was gone. Now I'm back with more flappiness in my head. Which, how do you see? Your head's a big flap.
Well, from what I understand...
as far as the underside, what the nature of the underside
Well,
is?
the nature of the upside down and the Demogorgon, that the Duffer Brothers, like, somebody asked them, oh, you guys don't know what any of that's about. And they're like, no, we have a 30-page treatise on what that is and what the monster is. And
if you're going to do a show like that, you have to write a show Bible,
right?
And that you can maybe alter a tiny bit on the fly, but you've got to.
You can't lost it. You can't wing it and like figure it out as you're going along.
Hey, let's put a polar bear in him. Yeah, all right, whatever, sure.
Right, and they're like, we just didn't have time. We had more story to tell than this exposition. It's like, that's what we'll get to in season 2. That's kind of the point of the whole thing.
It's my hope that this little lost boy, get the boy back, was just a tiny little episode in the whole telling of the story of the underside and the quote-unquote Demogorgon, because it's on the underside. Nothing else seems to be there that's living except something that was brought over from the upside and the monster.
Right. And
so what is
it and why and
what is
how?
Exactly. How does it, is it always there? Like, oh, look, there's a rift. Now I can pop out and feed on deer and on... on Barb.
On Barb, yeah. Poor Barb.
Now, from the rumors I've heard is that season 2 will address this and there will be justice for Barb.
There is a cult of Barb.
How can there be justice for Barb? The quote-unquote monster that did this is dead, and she is on the underside, theoretically dead.
The justice is that everyone was so focused on Will Byers and getting Will Byers back, and poor Barb disappears and, like, kind of no one mentions it.
The cops aren't even looking for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because she's a teenager or whatever, and poor, she's dead in a swimming pool or whatever it was.
I gotta say this, though. When I first saw a couple of stills online, like, hey, it's, it's Stranger Things, I thought that was an adult woman. Barb.
Well, yeah.
She dressed very much like a frumpy housewife of 1980s.
A nerdy 80s,
Yeah. And it wasn't until the first episode when I saw, like, oh, that's supposed to be a kid. Oh, my gosh. She's like,
a teenager.
6
high
inches.
School, yeah.
She's 6 inches taller than most, and she's a little on the hefty side, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But she just came off to me as an adult in the picture, and I'm just wondering if there's more that's going to be told about this and how it's going to play out.
Well,
and the quote unquote body of Barb we saw, what the fuck was done to it? I mean,
don't know.
It looks like I'm just going to call it Demogorgon because it's not though, but that's what we're going to call it. The Demogorgon fed on it, but look what happened to Will. He was found with a living tentacle down his mouth.
Yeah, is he?
So
yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what is it?
Is that an extension of the Demogorgon, or is the dimension feeding on him, or what?
Or is it? Why is it keeping him alive and it didn't? It ate her.
Well, maybe I don't know because he was gone before Barb was, wasn't he?
Yeah,
that's right.
They were all looking for him.
I mean, I think it was within 24 hours between Will and Barb going missing.
Yes, it was that night.
So
because they went to because then they were all going to the. That was the excuse to go to the party.
Right.
Was at the rally for
Will.
The vigil.
The vigil. Yeah. Maybe it's because Will found the fort, the hiding spot, and that bought him some more time, whereas Barb didn't have something like that.
Yeah, and is the fort like just the physical thing, or is it like a mental barrier that he was able to see? That's the thing.
That's the thing that has me most intrigued. What is the underside?
Yeah.
Obviously it's, you can access it through a rift that was created by 11 when she, projected right up to the Demogorgon and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Demogorgon," rah! And just freaked the hell out and blew apart, the thin spot between dimensions. And we've, there's plenty of sci-fi and speculative fiction that talks about thin spot. Well, Fringe, the TV series Fringe, had a whole thing about there are thinner spots between dimensions in places than others.
Right.
So it's that's what I'm most curious about is what is the underside, and it looks to me like Matthew Modine's character Wheeler, was it Wheeler? No,
something like that. I forget.
I can't remember what the hell his name was. See, I
They
told you.
don't ever really.
No,
say
Wheeler
his
is
name.
the kid's name. Brenner.
Yeah.
Dr. Brenner, Martin Brenner. I don't know if he really is the father. I don't think he is because we know the mother, but we don't know if that doctor and the mother had a relationship.
I'm sure he raised her after they abducted her and told the mother.
But how did he know about her powers to begin? That's why I'm wondering if perhaps
did he?
Eleven's mother and him had a thing like, "Hey, this kid, okay, we're broken up."
Or maybe
snatch.
It was engineered, like he was.
That's another thing with the origin story for 11.
Yeah.
And we got that little kid romance going on there between.
Well, let me jump to that. I think going along the lines of Barb and all that, the strongest thing in the entire series is the casting, is these kids who are amazing. Every one of them.
I can't think of a single casting decision that I saw one doesn't quite work.
Right.
I mean, there's some performances I don't like as much as others, but that's not the same thing as, wow, this is horribly miscast.
Right.
So,
like, even they did a real, in my opinion, Stephen King-esque maneuver where when 11 breaks out and she gets caught in the diner eating the French fries. That character, that guy who he might be Wheeler, the guy who owned the diner. He had some kind of name like that. Well, that guy was.
Well, no, that's the that family name. Finn Wolfhard plays Mike Wheeler.
No. Okay, yeah. So the guy who owned the diner, who found her, who caught her eating, that he was a fully fleshed out character. Like, that guy was like, I want to see that guy do stuff. Like, I want to know more about that guy. And they wrote this beautiful character just to take him out.
Yeah, how did...
Very Stephen King, very Joss Whedon. It's like, you're going to love that guy, and then I'm going to kill him. This is what they do.
It's a fetish now for TV shows like Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. Oh, it's your favorite? You love him?
Come on.
Keep telling me how much you love this character. It raises the odds of me killing him in the subsequent season. It goes up and up and up.
But just the fact, like, having Stephen King does that all the time. Like, any ancillary character, they don't just get mentioned. They get a whole chapter and like a backstory and a life.
Which sometimes can be meandering and without purpose in written work.
But it does flesh the world out.
It fleshes the world out as long as it serves a purpose. Not like, oh, I mentioned a character that did this thing. Well, I better write a whole backstory about him. Sometimes you don't need to know the backstory. Now,
right? But if it's just that's Bob, he's a mailman, and that's it. It's one dimensional. But Bob, the mailman, whose mother is this and who has a child is this, and you flesh that out. It makes the world bigger and better, and that's they really did that well on this episode.
And they only had 8 episodes.
True.
So they had to really, parse and streamline stuff. My guess is that if they had a full 10, 12, 13, as these things usually go, we might have gotten the same exact story with the same exact end with more...
Just a bigger...
But I don't know how much more you could add into this and not seem like it was padded. I think they kept it pretty... chugging along and concise.
Well, like I said, that's what happened with the whole, with the whole Demogorgon. It's like, we just couldn't fit it all in. So they streamlined and wrote the best
I mean,
best series.
Maybe season 1 is kind of, this side of the tightrope with a couple of jumps over there. Maybe next one we're going to fully find out what the underside is.
Can't wait.
Because oh, put on these suits. The air is toxic over there. No, not really. I mean, Will was breathing it the whole time.
Yeah, but he was not in
he was
good
not
shape
doing
when
too
he got,
well.
yeah.
But
and he's got slugs in him now.
that
was a fucking freaky
now, of course,
scene.
as the I looked at the timer on the episode. It's like shit. It's like 5 minutes left, and there's going to be at least 2.5 to 3 minutes of credits. So they're going to have to do an ultimate sting in the next 90 seconds.
Yep.
For people to go, holy shit, season 2.
Yep.
And as soon as he got up to go wash his hands, I went, here it comes. What's going to happen? Is something going to come out of the mirror? Nope. And they had a wall there that looked like, oh, is something going to come out of the wall? Like, no. He's just going to cough up a slug and pulse to the underside.
Yep.
And that makes me wonder, do we have like an alien situation where it laid some stuff and he coughed up the embryos as opposed to having them burst out of them?
Maybe.
And now we have little baby Demogorgons all over, was it Watkins?
Hawkins.
Hawkins, that's it.
Hawkins,
Hawkins.
Indiana.
He coughs up at the side of the road, coughs up at school, coughs up at home, and all of a sudden 3 Demogorgons,
One of them went down the sewer.
congeal.
So.
Oh, the sewer Demogorgon's going to be so ultimate, So, and the fact that he pulsed into the underside
Now he's connected somehow.
That's it.
He crossed over, and
he spent more time there than any other character on the in the show.
Yeah,
aside from the Demogorgon.
Yeah,
who's from there.
Yep.
Or is he? I don't know. Probably.
Or is he? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what gets me the most. If the underside is basically the next dimension or a fucked up mirror of our dimension. All right, the structures are there. I saw the houses and stuff. It's all dark, but there's no corollary living things there.
Right.
Nothing. Not a single thing.
The only thing
except the Demogorgon
is energy.
Right. Well, you can hear sound.
Well, when he was walking down the hallway, that's when the lights lit
right.
up, and so there is some kind of connection.
Right, but nothing's lit, so it's not a mirror.
Right.
Or if it is, it's a black mirror.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch.
No. So I'm looking forward to season 2, and also to the Duffer Brothers. If groundbreaking work as a brother team follows suit, their eventual sex change.
Right. They don't all have to do that.
They don't?
No.
Oh, the Coen brothers. They're okay.
No. They don't. They're not going to do it either.
Right. I will say this: the Wachowski sisters now, post Matrix, some of their stuff has fallen a bit flat, but their storytelling has gotten very expansive and intricate.
I've heard that Cloud Atlas thing.
Well, that was an adaptation that was you can't adapt it, and then went, oh really? And then they adapted it, and then we went. Yeah, you're right.
You can't adapt.
You can't adapt.
I heard it was like impenetrable.
But they've done some great work. I really would like to see the Wachowski sisters do something that's hugely, just mind-alteringly popular, and then collect their damn Academy Awards. As the women they are now.
Are they both? Did they both?
Yeah. That was.
I know one of them had.
One of them did, and it was within I think about a year or two later. The other one transitioned as well.
Wow.
And I thought that's unusual because usually it's not you don't see that.
Yeah.
If there's someone who's transitioned in a family, it's not like the rest of the siblings go along, or even if there's a gay sibling. And the others are, others are not gay, or
just the coincidence.
Yeah, it's a coincidence.
Both feeling that they needed to transition, and that's amazing.
Thank God we live in a country where they can do that, and and it's all good.
Yeah.
So I like to see them collect their Academy Awards or whatever they do, and people go, oh. Okay, they're just normal people.
Yeah, they have to do a really great, popular, just giant. Like they got to do the
a
not
Matrix,
the Matrix, a Matrix.
No, the Matrix
level
be played out.
No, I mean a Matrix
level
event, so that it could be like, hey, look what 2 trans people did.
Yeah, it's like, wow, you're gonna bash on them now? Like, oh well, yeah. See, when you know them a little bit. it's kind of hard to be all reflexively, they're bad, they're the worst thing ever. Like, but they did this thing I love so much.
Yeah.
Like, well,
when they were males,
Come
they
on.
did The Matrix,
Yeah.
which was amazing. And
Yeah.
now that they're females, they did this, which was amazing.
yeah.
So I agree.
What's the connective thing? It's them doing it, whether they're
Right.
male or female.
Exactly.
So, anyway, back to let's go through the cast
Mm-hmm.
for a hot second here. I really liked the Jim Hopper, the chief of police,
David Harbour, yeah. It was funny. You didn't realize this at the time, but I was laughing when we went and saw Suicide Squad because he was in that as well.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he's one of the government.
Had you seen Stranger Things at that point?
Yes, we had started
Oh,
watching.
actually, you've seen it for a while.
Yeah, we watched it. We started it probably the second week it was out. Like it was
Oh.
the first weekend we moved.
Yeah, I waited so long.
Yeah, which is fine. But when we were going, I was like, Suicide Squad came out, I think, a week after Stranger Things dropped. And I was like, wow, that guy's having a week.
Yeah.
good,
Well,
for him.
Yeah.
And he's been around from what I understand.
He did look familiar.
Yeah.
Like
he's a character actor, I think.
Okay,
And,
like I've seen him in things, but
and
not...
this is definitely his breakout. you
Yeah.
know? I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was so good in just every way. I mean, the tortured dad, he had his darkness, and he was funny and just very real. He really, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Bobby Brown, Millie Bobby Brown.
Yes.
As 11.
I thought she was unbelievable.
It took me a while to kind of get into that character.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because, she said very little. She emoted almost, which was required for the character.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get into the head of that character. And done. I mean, good. I mean, I got no complaints about 11
think
whatsoever.
the performance given by, what is she, 12, 13 maybe?
Perhaps she's 11. I don't know.
I don't think she's 11. I to get that level of performance, it's funny. I've kind of wanted, since I saw it, I want to see what her actual line count is, like how many lines she actually has, because it cannot be very high.
You could probably fit it on one page.
Yeah, I think she, to a performance of that caliber with, I don't know, 30 lines of dialogue, maybe, is pretty astounding.
Succinct.
For a kid,
Well,
know.
because it's all in the face and in the eyes.
In the performance. And she
she-
was scary, man, when she was blowing people, like breaking people's arms and blowing soldiers across the room.
and making motherfuckers wet themselves.
Yes.
So that tells you right there, not only can she do that, but she can see into your body and grip a certain organ. Because the way it was explained very briefly, like, well, maybe she reached in to squeeze his bladder. That would make you involuntarily wet your... So that, where you could reach in and just grab someone's heart and just go...
Yep.
And,
And here's another, like, going along with the whole mystery thing. Why does she get nosebleeds when she uses her?
That, I think, is a story device to let you know that her powers are finite and there is a cost for her to expend that energy.
But what is the...
But if it means more, like, eventually, like, every time she uses her powers, she loses 1 billion brain cells, and we've got, 500 trillion. Eventually, she'll be this could
she's
go
not
any way.
omnipotent. She's gonna destroy herself.
Right.
Which she kind of did.
Well, that's the thing. The way they showed the death of the Demogorgon, it pulverized and kind of enveloped her, and then was gone. And the mass that was left was taken to another dimension, or to the underside, or whatever, because there was not a pile of Demogorgon flesh or 11 flesh on the floor. It was a little bit of sparkly shit in the air, and that was it. So that tells us, one, the Demogorgon could come back in season 2, no problem. I prefer it not to. I'd like to see something else, but if
there'll be some version, I think.
Well, if the story of the underside is, if it is the Demogorgon character, then obviously it needs to come back. But we don't know the nature, because that could be that could be the nice thing from the underside. Maybe there's something 10 times worse.
Well, I read.
Oh my God, that's where Cloverfield comes from.
Oh yeah.
If they tied that shit into Cloverfield, I would just fall the fuck out. I'd be like, "You've been fucking with."
I've read a few fan theories, and one of them is that maybe the Demogorgon and Eleven are mirror images of each other.
Very good.
She does have a line where she says, "I am the monster." You know, she says it straight out.
Yes, she
so
does.
it's like, what does that mean? You know, why was she able to connect and, dissipate?
Or who's to say that Terry Ives didn't have fraternal twins?
Maybe.
And one spent way too much time on the underside.
Maybe. Or was born there.
Or yeah, all that other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a rich
Yeah, they have
soil to
established
till.
a beautiful world.
Yeah.
And a lot of
this
mysteries that can go.
This entire story, if it was on a network show, they'd cram this entire 8 episodes into maybe 2 or 1 to get things set up. Like, okay, you know how it is?
Yeah.
Remember when they relaunched the Bionic Woman and she went from to Bionic in one goddamn episode?
Yeah.
It's like, let the story, things don't happen that quickly. This isn't a soap opera where, week to week you have amnesia, you're, abducted by aliens, you're committing murder, you're kidnapped. Just let the story breathe a little bit.
Thank you, Netflix. Thank you, BBC, for giving.
Yes, they're showing us the way, but we're still putting these crappy procedural. There's so few shows left on broadcast American television that I still give one shit about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about TV in the springtime.
Yeah.
When some new shows are popping up. There's a couple out there. There's a couple there. This Is Us is surprising me.
That's what I hear, and we haven't.
It's gorgeous. It's just good storytelling. Period. Mm-hmm. It's just storytelling.
Like I've said, Speechless is also very good. The
I
ABC.
haven't picked that one. I don't like Minnie Driver. I just don't like her.
Okay,
but
the show is really well done.
But I mean, if a show is good and it's well written, I can get past my dislike for any particular actor or actress. So. Yeah. But we'll talk about that. Maybe now it's probably too soon to hope that maybe in the spring we'll get Stranger Things season 2. Might be a little.
They're in pre now. They have realized, they understand that if they're going to keep using these same kids, they gotta move.
Chop.
Because these kids are going to grow up. Like they said,
Stranger Things season 2, Race Against Puberty.
Right. They said by the end of the production, the kid who plays Dustin, who actually was at the aquarium the other day when I was there. I didn't get to see him, but everyone was all in a tizzy that the kid from Stranger Things. But they said by the end of the production, his voice had changed so much that he couldn't ADR any of the stuff he had done. Like he couldn't automatic dialogue replacement, for those who don't know. Right. He couldn't re-record dialogue that may have been flubbed or there was a sound issue with, because his voice had changed so much.
Yep, that's about it. And this is an issue that, strangely enough, was brought to everyone's attention by Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
Where the fuck are Caleb's parents? Who are these people, and why the fuck are they not to be found anywhere? I'm hoping that they're going to show up in season 2 and explain why, we only go to Caleb's house once. Uh-huh. He answers the door.
Yep.
So, okay, it's not like the parents are like deadbeats or whatever, but we know the parents of, the other kids and everything.
Yep.
Not so much with Caleb. What's a black man got to do to get some parents?
Brother can't have no family.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see if they're gonna wink, nod, or
I'm wondering if it's even like a subtle nod to the short shrift. I that's way reading deep into it.
That's not a subtle nod. That's like, the thing that TV does all the time. We're gonna do it too.
Well, at least they didn't kill him off first.
So they didn't kill anybody off. Well, I mean, of the four core kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Barb's the only one who named character that died. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Everyone else was like nondescript military dude getting his neck crunched or whatever.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Poor Barb. Poor Barb.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of there's a parody video when the kids were on Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
They did a sketch where they filmed them like in the basement as the kids.
Yeah.
And then Barb shows up, is like, "What? You fucking guys can't come looking for me? It's all Will. It's really funny.
Was it the actual Barb actress?
No, it wasn't. It seemed to be like it was a guy, but Jimmy Fallon played Steve.
Oh, was it? My God! Can't you come?
Yeah.
Fallon gets in those girl outfits of his and goes stupid.
It's very fun. We put that one up too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
And then see, now that I've seen Stranger Things, I can go and watch those parodies and go,
Yes.
that's hilarious.
I get it now.
It's like when I was watching reruns of SNL and finally understanding all the jokes about Jaws and
The
Close
Godfather,
Encounters and
yeah.
Godfather, because at that point I had seen those they're like, oh, that's why that's funny.
Yeah.
You got to see the. We talked about Winona. Emmy, a nomination.
Nomination, at least, yeah.
Nomination. I don't know what the field's looking like this year off the top of my head, but
there's all the heavy hitters, but I mean,
and Mackenzie Davis, get her that nomination for *Halt and Catch Fire*.
okay.
Mackenzie, she's such a good actress. Also in Black Mirror.
Okay.
In the episode San Junipero, which will destroy you.
Great.
Destroy you.
Great. You keep telling me that the first one with the pig was just kind of
that's
nothing, and
that
I was
is
like,
nothing.
I got to the end of that episode. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch the rest of this.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's
yes, the whole pig thing was disgusting, but that wasn't the disturbing part.
No, because that's like watching what is it, like Saw or whatever. Like,
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. Who gives a shit?
It could happen, but it's not going to happen to me. Whereas other stuff, in Black Mirror, like, oh, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
That could definitely happen.
Yeah.
That could definitely happen to me.
Well, like I said, him fucking the pig was not the disturbing part. It was the fact that everything that was online and everything was connected.
Yep.
Everything was immediately, and they he could tell that they were
Yep.
The blue screen. All right, we're getting on a tangent, but
there's a true fun story behind that, but we'll
save it for the episode.
Yeah, we'll save it for the episode. Save it for the episode.
Speaking of such, just to go back to the whole 80s aesthetic of the show, one of my favorite things that they did was I'm sure it's all CG, but some of the special effects I think were downgraded in res or something made to look when they're at the reservoir, okay, and he gets pushed down and 11 catches.
No, he didn't get pushed. He jumped.
Well, that's right. When he jumps, you can. It almost looks like they made it look like visual composite, like old school matte lines around. Watch it again. To me, it doesn't look slick at all. It looks clunky,
and see,
on purpose.
That's the kind of thing that you may not do because you look for that kind of stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that you subconsciously absorb. Have you heard of the Uncanny Valley?
Yes.
You know that?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
There's certain special effects where, like, if it's 80s, if you do a 2016 special effect, you may not consciously know it, but you're like, that's not right. And you don't know why you necessarily feel that way. Mm-hmm. That's entirely possible.
It just
and it definitely made when Elle traveled or projected to, I don't want to say to the underside,
because it's not. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when she projected, where the Demogorgon was feeding, it could have been on the underside. It could have been just feeding there in our side or whatever. But that was made very, 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 very slick.
Yeah.
The lighting in that. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. It just, it's like it was lit. But from where?
Yeah.
There was like no source. I challenge. It was like diffused within an inch of its life.
Yep.
And it was like walking. You thought it was water, but it's like glass, and it reminds me a bit of Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson. Have you seen that?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
And I know what bits and pieces you've seen from
Well,
it.
no, I've seen other bits and pieces as well, but I mean, I've seen like some of the weird effect. I know what you're talking about. Like, but it was all white.
The killing floor. Well, no, it was not white. It was all dark.
Was it dark? Okay.
Dark. It was. She would lead him into the room, and she'd continue walking. And, she's naked, and he's like, hey, and suddenly he starts sinking into the floor, and he keeps moving to try to get to her, and then sinks beneath the floor. But that placid, the substrate that she was walking on, it reminded me of that when Elle projected, I guess at first she was, the first time we went into her projection, she was trying to listen in to a Russian.
Yeah,
because the whole thing was to try to defeat those Russians, and then I think the next time we saw it was when she went to go tap on the Gorgon, the Demogorgon.
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, when they put her in the tank and everything.
Yeah, but anyway, so
but going back, you're right. If you watch those scenes, they're very slick and very beautiful and really perfect. Watch, like, it struck me on the scene when he jumps into the reservoir, and the scene where the van flips over. Very clunky, very heavy matte lines.
Well, I think when the van flipped over, they flipped a fucking van.
Yeah, but,
I mean, in Batman, they flipped a goddamn semi. That wasn't CGI. They actually flipped a full semi.
Right. But there's just like I think the effects are purposefully slightly clunky and not slick.
Okay, that's possible.
On purpose to give you more of that.
To put you in the era.
Yeah, because I'm watching, there's that shot of him hanging in midair, and I was like, you can see like what they call matte lines back in the day before CGI kids, they did what was called optical effects, where it was one layer of film on top of another layer of film on top of another layer on top of another layer on top of a matte painting of glass. And I've watched every behind the scenes of Star Wars that there is.
Remember, kids, those planets that Kirk and the crew beamed down on that had those majestic vistas with triple moons, those aren't real.
Yeah.
Those are paintings.
Yeah, and to do like some of those, you get what they call matte lines, which were big, clunky black outlines around stuff that was on top of another thing.
Oh, you mean like during the dogfights with the TIE fighters?
Exactly. Watch the original cuts if you can find them of the Hoth battle, and there's big matte lines around the ships, and like the tracking, the TIE fighter shots where there's white boxes around or very light colored boxes around the TIE fighters. So there were really clunky effects that I really enjoyed the fact that they did that on purpose,
Let's talk about the Wheeler family.
Okay.
I really don't like Mrs. Wheeler.
Okay.
She seems pretty fucking oblivious.
Yeah.
Although I did like that. You can talk to me. You can tell me. Like if you just got laid, you could say so.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's very open-minded of her. But her and the hubby are just oblivious.
Yes.
The
father especially.
Oh my God. No, he would never do that. She would never do that. I can't get rid of my preconceived ideas of this,
and
that,
just
whatever.
Clueless.
Completely.
Yeah.
And what did you think of the whole dynamic between Nancy and I guess is it Jonathan? Yeah.
Yeah.
The photograph.
Will's
photograph
brother.
taken. Will's older brother.
What I liked most about it, was the fact that they didn't end up together. That was very real life. That was very, yes, we went through the whole thing and the whole trope of, I'm going to fall for, I'm not going to, and I also,
very Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like, oh, you've been there for me, but I'm going to go back to the...
Exactly.
Because that's the shit that happens, guys.
Yep.
You're going to put in all this effort with a girl, and then she's just going to go, nope, I'm going to go back to the douchebag that occasionally breaks cameras and, beats up people.
I read somewhere that Steve was not supposed to be the outcome. I don't think he was supposed to die, but he was not supposed to end up with her. the Duffer Brothers and the cast, they liked that actor so much, and they liked his performance so much that they manipulated the story. They're like, we need to keep this guy around, and you do kind of end up liking him a lot more.
And that's right, because when he shows up to he goes back and forth between. It's almost like he's a decent guy, but in certain situations he becomes a raging asshole.
Well, he's a high school kid,
right? Well,
yeah, he's a fucking high school.
I remember those days, and then all of a sudden your hormones or whatever it is, testosterone dies down, and you're like, oh shit, I was a total dick.
Yeah.
I better go, and then...
Or you were just desperately trying to be cool, that you were acting like an asshole.
I killed a motherfucking 10,000 Demogorgons, and that bitch wouldn't give me the time of day! Yeah. No. And then he fought in the battle.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, get out of here, and he's running, and then like, no,
shit.
I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back in. I went, you know what? Good for him. I still want Nancy to end up with
Jonathan. Yeah.
With Jonathan, but if it's not going to happen right away, I'll be okay with that.
Yeah,
I'll be okay with that. So that was an interesting, dynamic. We had the little puppy love with Elle thing going there. Then we had the next level up. We had the little high school, possibly obsessive a little bit with Jonathan.
A little bit,
and
little bit.
I mean, he was there taking photographs. Why was he there?
Right.
And he did take pictures of her taking off her clothes in the open window there.
And he was developing those pictures.
He did. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have snapped that. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, above that, we have just the slight inkling of was it Joyce and the police chief? That there wasn't anything where it's like, oh, they're definitely getting together. But you're just looking into season 2 going, they've been through some shit.
That could be a thing. Yeah.
Because she's definitely not pining away for her ex.
Right.
What a dick that guy turned out to be.
Yeah.
Trying to make money off his kid's death. Holy fucking shit.
Yep.
Oh my God.
There's low and there's low.
Yeah. I mean, wow. It's for my other son's education. Yeah, bullshit.
Well, we talked about Mike and we talked about Caleb. We've not talked about Dustin.
Oh, Toothless Boy.
Toothless. That kid was just so much fun.
Oh yeah,
so great.
And good God, they need to shoot like 2 seasons back to back to capture. I mean, I don't know how this story is supposed to progress.
Right.
I mean,
they say the only thing I've heard is that it will definitely be 1 year later. It's not going to pick up right at where it ended.
Okay, well,
it's
good
because they have to.
Because the kids at that age, there's no way
they're going to be a foot taller.
You could say, yeah, and be like, this is when now?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a week after the events, and they're like, no, you can't get away with that. This isn't, again, like a soap opera where all of a sudden you can sub in a new actor for a character and just go, the part of the Demogorgon will now be played. And they're like, okay, sure. This is not that kind of show. You can't do that.
And, Harry Potter, they nailed that, luckily, because it was a school year, and then a school year, and then a school year.
Right.
So the kids were able to grow in real time, almost.
Right. Yeah, well, after the success of the first one, they were probably in pre-production on the third one while the second one was filming.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
chop, chop, chop. Got to get the kids, know.
We got to keep these kids going. And it was, for the first 3 movies of that, it was, I'm fairly certain it was like production, small break, back into production.
Right.
Like every year they were filming.
As soon as we wrap and go into post-production, we're going to give you 2 weeks off. And then you're back.
Yeah,
and that's just to learn your lines.
And I think they did 3 movies straight up like that. And after that one, they were like, "Okay, we need a break. We need a break." So that's why like when in the first movie when he's 11, he's 11. In the second movie when he's 12, he's 12. In the third movie, but after that, it got farther.
Yeah.
And but like you said, it was easier to justify that.
Right.
As you get older, it couldn't be a week after
right.
Will
like
Byers
the,
comes back.
Was it Natalia Dyer who plays Nancy Wheeler? The actress herself is 19 and she's playing 16?
Something like that.
Something like that. Convincing. In 2 years, she could probably still play, but at a certain point, these actors are going to age out of the high school thing. It's just not going to be possible
Right.
to do it anymore. So, but who knows if the story requires them to be kids?
Yeah.
You know, that's
Who knows if the story requires them? We could go a totally different direction.
That's true. Although I get the feeling that I would like to see these characters
absolutely.
go through it. But you're right. The
don't
underside
know.
the underside is the main story here, in
Yeah.
my opinion. And if all of a sudden season 2 has nothing to do with one, and it's the underside from taken from the other side, or who knows?
Who is the main character? Is it Elle? Is it the Demogorgon?
Yeah.
Is it Will Byers? Is it Matthew Modine's character? Who
Right.
is whose story are we
Dr.
on?
Brenner.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to talk about with Dr. Brenner. There's a lot more to experience, to know. All right, how did you get to the point where you have this kid?
Right.
How did that happen? You know, did you breed her? Did you
just abduct her?
Did you
Did
do
you-
something?
Yeah.
You know, were you hitting it with his mom,
Right.
with Elle's mom, and then go, hey, this kid has got something. Let's, who knows? So I'm, these are questions that are good to have at the end of a season, because
Absolutely.
it means you're interested, as opposed to
It wasn't like, oh, that was fun.
yeah, interesting. Whatever. If another one comes out, I'll check it out. But whatever.
No, this is like, okay, I want to see what happens to them, and
Yeah.
I want to see season 3 and 4 where it ends up.
exactly. Like,
And I'd be happy with if we get 3 seasons or 4 seasons, and that's it. And they're like, okay, that's the end of the story, and we
tell the story you want to tell, and then be done with it.
and then go do something else. Go do something else is good. Don't beat it to death.
Don't drag it out for 17 fucking seasons, and the last 10 we don't give a shit about any of it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have to mention, I think my absolute favorite part of the whole thing. Okay, the thing that
The soundtrack, the music.
the soundtrack and the opening titles, the little grainy opening titles, the soundtrack it was Tales from the Dark Side. Perfect, it was.
It sounds like I think
John
it's-
Carpenter. That's what I kept getting off of it.
I also got a bit of, and I believe his name is Mac Quayle, the guy that does the music for Mr. Robot.
Okay,
That kind of lo-fi electronica.
I don't think I think I read who actually did it.
Yeah,
and
no, I don't think
it's
it is.
not
I
that.
don't think it's him.
It's a duo, I believe.
But it has.
But that opening sequence, that opening title sequence, was just the font down to everything was just absolutely perfect. I loved it so much. It just, for some weird reason, it added a lot for me.
Yeah, well, why not? There's a reason why people spend so much time perfecting their their theme song and their opening
What's
credits.
the details?
'Cause
It's everything,
the little details.
Yep.
Unless you're Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and then you say, "Fuck it, our opening credits are going to have nothing that ever happens in the TV series ever."
Yeah,
So I which is another way.
absolutely. That's as long
And
as
then when we do a film, we're actually going to do the adventure from the credits
Right.
in the film. Yeah, exactly.
make a choice and go with it.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
all.
it created a good aesthetic for it. I'm a huge fan of the Mr. Robot stuff, and also of what was it called? The turn of the century hospital. The Nick.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah,
Nick. Weird electronica music on a period piece from the turn of the century. I thought, what the hell? How's this going to work? And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked beautifully. It was so eerie and incongruent with the two things, like they didn't match,
Right.
but they created an unease that worked perfectly for that series.
Right. Whereas the Stranger Things was so absolutely perfect for the time frame.
Oh,
It
yeah.
worked. I can see it going both ways.
That's back when Daft Punk was just, they were just a little bit slightly crazy and
slightly loony.
slightly loony, and perhaps just
agitated.
little bit of a reprobate at that point, but not quite punk yet. They're getting there.
Or completely daft.
Completely daft. Yes, exactly. So, what are you looking forward to for season 2? I've already said I want to know more about the underside.
Oh, absolutely. I want to see what happens with the kids. I want to see what happens with Will, with like what's going to go on.
Exactly.
Because it's on. We've got his, like I said, he's coughing up slugs.
I mean, if he had just coughed up a slug, I would have thought, all right, maybe it was something that was implanted. He coughed it up. Now he's okay. But the fact that he pulsed into the underside said, oh, no, there's something more going on now.
Mm-hmm.
So, or maybe Will turns out to have the same powers as 11.
Maybe.
And maybe that's
Maybe
find
that's
out
where
that's
she's
how
from,
exactly. Well, maybe not from, but she spent a lot of time over there and knows what's. I mean,
we don't know. We know. I'm looking forward to questions being answered and more questions being raised.
Of course,
that's what I'm looking for.
Any good show, I liked Lost, and
I loved it. I loved it because I didn't know what was going on. And yes, the ending
and neither
was
did the
disappointing.
people who did the show.
Right. If they could have wrapped it up, that would have been better.
They probably could have trimmed about 2 seasons out of that and made it a little more concise. But
they at least said, okay, give us an end date. Give us a point so we can wrap it up.
Right.
As opposed to...
And they knew where they wanted to go. I think they always knew where they wanted to go. It's just the weird diversions and backtracks and detours and roundabouts they took to get there. Yeah. It's like, hey, look, there's the island, but I have 3 years to fill, so I'm going to tread water, swim a little towards the island. I'm going to tread water and then swim a little, and that's which is wonderful. If you have a network saying, "Here's tons of money, people love this show, go write some funky, fun stuff," I would be like, hell, I don't blame them for it.
All right, polar bears,
exactly.
smoke monster, whatever you do.
Let's turn a wheel and drop in the desert.
Exactly.
Let's go and let's do flashbacks that are really flash forwards,
flash
sideways.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, as far as season 2, obviously want to know more about the underside and see what's going on there. There's been some minor casting.
Yes,
announcements.
there has.
They've announced, and none of them have been, save for one, has been really any named people, which is good. I mean, there's been a couple. Paul Reiser, but he's in for one episode. And
the only other big one is Mikey from Goonies. Sean Astin has also been announced.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe they're
it's a double like meta tie-in with the Goonies and all that.
Oh my God! If they do this is not the kind of show to do a wink and a nod in an obvious way to the Goonies.
No, but we're going to use an actor from a thing with kids Goonies. From the 80s.
Wow, maybe they could reunite the Goonies completely in like season 3 of Stranger Things because they can't get the fucking sequel ever to happen. But what I'm really looking forward to is they've actually named the actor who's going to be the baddie. In season 2. And it's
medication time. Medication time.
We ran out of time. I will unlock that curiosity door next week.
The 9 Billion Names of Pod was conceived, written, and performed by Micah Reed and Dan Bauman, with Abdul Beni Hassan as the sound of splintering wood. Research, transportation, and exasperated looks by Courtney Lohner. Technical assistance by Cubase, Pro Tools, Skynet, QLab, Deep Thought, Big Brother, and Eddie, your shipboard computer. Financial consideration provided by the Wayne Foundation, Stark Industries, the Piranha Brothers, and LexCorp. Legal counsel by the Office of Howard and Fine. Mouth breather. Our intro music was written by Tim Akers. This podcast was sponsored by Deep Shack Records and a production of Audio Primate. Throw us a couple stars on iTunes, why don't you? Check us out on dadsgarageradio.net. Listen, watch on YouTube. Listen on SoundCloud. Stream us on Stitcher. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Or email us, comlink@billionpod.com. Till this happens again, I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Michael Reed.
Hello, Z.